Today we're going to read Chapter 23 in Operation Redwood. As we read, we will be discussing unknown words in the text and a strategy for how to determine their meaning. Remember, knowing the definition of unknown words is important, but knowing how to figure them out on your own is as equally important. The strategy we'll be practicing today is stick to your story. There are 3 steps to the strategy. First, when you come across an unknown word, you want to think about what is happening in the story. You can look back at the dialogue of the characters, any recent events that have happened, or just what you know about the story so far. Then you define what you think it means. It's not important about being right the first time. It's just important about using your previous knowledge in order to think of a definition. Then you go back and you check the word in context. You check to see if what your definition that you came up with, if it makes sense to the story. I'll start by reading a few pages of chapter 23, and I'll pause to model the story strategy, and then you'll have some time to practice it on your own. Chapter 23, Intruders. The sound of the birds woke the children early. In the sunshine, the forest looked bright and ordinary again. For breakfast, they ate apples and the rest of the chocolate chip cookies and passed around a box of cereal. Danny and Julian started a game of crazy eights, and Robin and Ariel joined in after the first round. Molly lay down with her chin in her hands, looking into the forest. "Somebody's coming," she said so softly that only Julian heard. He craned forward and saw 2 men, dressed in jeans and t-shirts, walking slowly from tree to tree. One had a mustache and one was carrying a can of spray paint. The other was older and wore glasses and a camouflage cap. "Everybody down," Julian whispered loudly. Danny and the girls looked up from their cards, and Julian pointed to the 2 men. Robin crouched down behind one of the storage bins, and the others quickly flattened themselves on top of the sleeping bags and peered through the railings. Nobody spoke a word. They watched as the man with the paint can sprayed a blue slash on a giant redwood about 20 feet away. "Boy, you don't see trees like this anymore," said the older man. He gave the tree an appreciative look and jotted a note on his clipboard. "This place is a gold mine. My granddaddy's place used to look just like this when I was a kid. If he hadn't sold it, I'd be a rich man. The rest of the property's not bad either. There must be $500,000 worth of fur back on the northern slope." "Yeah, but this here is the real treasure." The spray painter was standing right underneath them. They could see his brown mustache and the glint of his blue eyes through the cracks in the floorboards. "Hey, look up here," he said. "There's a treehouse." "You better watch out. There might be somebody living up there." Julian felt a sharp poke in his side. Robin was motioning for everyone to stand up. When nobody moved, she gave them a dirty look and stood up tall, her chin thrust out. Julian and Danny jumped up next to her, and Ariel and Molly reluctantly followed. So I'm going to reread this, or I'm going to point out the word thrust here, and I'll model how I would use the stick to your story strategy to figure out what thrust means. It says, when nobody moved, she gave them a dirty look, stood up tall, her chin thrust out. I'm going to think about what's happening in the story. It seems as though Robin wants to address these men that are down in the forest spray painting the trees. What I already know about Robin is she has quite the attitude and is very opinionated. And it says that she just gave her friends a dirty look for not standing up. So I have to think her chin, something out. It's something she can do with her chin, but I don't know what thrust means. So I can define it on my own. I think to thrust might mean just to stick out or to kind of push something out. So I'll read it that way. When nobody moved, she gave them a dirty look and stood up tall, her chin pushed out. Julian and Danny jumped up next to her, and Ariel and Molly reluctantly followed. When I read it that way, I read that she's standing up tall and she has her chin stuck out as if she's standing tall and proud. So I think that makes sense. That when it says her chin thrust out, it just means that she's standing with her chin pointed upward, almost in like a proud stance. So that's the model, or that's me modeling how to do stick to your story. The unknown word was thrust. I defined it and it makes sense. So we'll keep reading. The spray painter made a long blue streak on one of the trunks below them. "Hey, this is our treehouse," Robin yelled down. "What do you think you're doing?" The spray painter grabbed his chest and pantomimed having a heart attack. "Holy smokes," he cried. "What are you doing up there?" "What are you doing spray painting our tree?" Robin demanded. I see another unknown word at the top of page 260. It says the spray painter grabbed his chest and pantomimed having a heart attack. I don't know what pantomimed means, so I'm going to use the stick to your story strategy. First, I have to think, what's going on again? Well, Robin just confronted these two men down at the bottom, or down underneath their treehouse. She yelled at them, "Hey, this is our treehouse. What do you think you're doing?" And now the spray painter, he grabbed his chest and he pantomimed, he did something about having a heart attack. Well, I know he's not literally having a heart attack, or at least I hope he's not. And then he says, "Holy smokes, what are you doing up there?" So I'm going to define it. I'm guessing pantomimed has to mean something like acted out or acted like. So we just check to make sure it makes sense. The spray painter grabbed his chest and acted like he was having a heart attack. That makes sense to me. The word pantomimed helps me. If I think it means acting, I can picture him grabbing his chest because he was so scared. He's acting like he had a heart attack. So again, that's just one way you can use your story, what's going on and what you already know, to figure out unknown words. It's very important not to skip the words like pantomimed or thrust or any other unknown words, because if you just skip them, you might miss the meaning of the story. You don't always have to go look up the word. That is a good tool, but you can just use these type of strategies to define them yourself. I'm going to pause here at page 260. I want you to finish reading chapter 23 on your own. Then you're going to practice the strategy yourself. The text below is a screenshot of page 259. I want you to revisit the text from today's reading. You're going to choose a word that is confusing to you and practice using the stick to your story strategy. You can either write you can either write in your information or record yourself walking through the steps and submit your recording. If you prefer to write down your answers, you're going to use this slide that's going to be in your Google Classroom. If you prefer to record yourself thinking out loud the strategy, like I did with the text today, then you can use the Flipgrid link, you can Screencastify, or use any other tool you already know in order to record. I hope you have fun practicing this strategy, and I'll see you next time.